Welcome to this explainer. Think about the last time you used a financial app. We tend to just assume that technology automatically levels the playing field, right? Well, today we're diving into the data to dismantle a 40-year-old myth. We're going to tackle the idea that simply deploying technology is enough to create real financial equality. We're actually going to look at some groundbreaking research spanning from the United States all the way to Ghana to uncover why simply giving someone an app definitely doesn't mean you've actually included them in the financial system.
So I want you to start by considering this core question. If an algorithm decides your loan, is it inherently fair? For years, the narrative has been that technology automatically equalizes everything. The assumption is that by removing the human element, taking the loan officers sitting behind a big mahogany desk totally out of the equation, we just magically remove human bias. But as we're about to see, the reality of how these digital systems operate out in the real world tells a completely different story. Okay, let's dive into this by defining exactly what we mean when we talk about FinTech. According to our source material, FinTech is a technology-driven, algorithmic, and deliberately impersonal financial industry. Following the 2008 financial crisis, there was this massive wave of mistrust in traditional institutions, and FinTech stepped right into that void. Their early promise was absolutely brilliant. Rely on neutral, hard, codifiable data to serve traditionally underbanked and minority markets at scale, and do it completely without human bias. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover 1. The FinTech myth. 2. How algorithms mirror banks. 3. Psychology drives engagement. 4. Friction kills value. And 5. Designing true inclusion. Let's get into it. Section 1. The FinTech myth. To understand if algorithms actually clothe the lending gap, researchers analyzed the 2017 Small Business Credit Survey. They focused specifically on what are called Period 0 borrowers. These are first-time applicants with zero reputation. Now, to make sense of the data, we have to contrast two very different lending models. On one side, we have transactional lenders. This group includes both large banks and fintechs. They rely primarily on hard, codifiable inputs, like standardized scoring and automated algorithms. On the flip side, we have relationship lenders, which are typically small community banks. They rely heavily on soft information gathered through local proximity, context, and repeated human interactions. The data reveals a really striking story about the probability of a borrower getting approved for the funds they requested. For large banks and fintechs, there's a clear gap at the extremes. Minority applicants are much less likely to receive their full requested funds and way more likely to receive 0%. But check out the small community banks. The probabilities track incredibly closely together, to the point where the confidence intervals actually overlap. Community banks achieve parity. So the absolutely crucial point is this. Algorithmic lenders mirror the exact same disparities as traditional, large transactional banks. This is kind of the aha moment of the data. Relying purely on hard data and digital reach leaves first-time, opaque borrowers completely behind. It turns out algorithms don't just lack a bedside manner, they rely on hard variables that already embed structural differences across groups. Taking the human out of the loop doesn't fix the problem at all. Actually, it proves that the soft information used by community banks is exactly what successfully neutralizes that gap. Section 3. Psychology drives engagement. We know that purely impersonal technology isn't the magic bullet for financial inclusion. So what soft ingredients are actually missing? To find out, our sources take us straight to the bustling mobile money, or MoMo, markets of Ghana. There, researchers discovered that adoption isn't just about downloading an app, it's about a vital concept called psychological ownership. This is defined as a user's sense of possession, control, and personal attachment toward a technology. Think of it as the difference between just renting a sterile hotel room for a night versus decorating your very own house. It's that powerful, totally subjective feeling that a digital financial platform is truly yours. This ownership rests on three main pillars. First, customer value. The convenience and safety of the tool must clearly outweigh the costs and effort to use it. Second, self-determination. The app must make the user feel highly competent and autonomous in handling their own money. And third, planned behavior. In tight-knit communities like those in Ghana, using the app has to align with strong social norms, like contributing to local events or sending remittances back home. When an app actually fulfills those three pillars, the continuous use of mobile money fundamentally changes a person's life. The data shows that fostering this sense of ownership directly translates into multidimensional financial inclusion. Users don't just passively hold an account. They actively manage their finances, they effortlessly support family to increase social engagement, and they boost their economic participation through business payments or micro-investments. Essentially, they've customized their own digital house. Section 4. Friction kills value. Now, to see how incredibly fragile this psychological ownership can be, we have to look to 2021, when the government of Ghana introduced the e-levy. This was a transaction tax applied directly to digital payments. It was later adjusted, but the initial impact was immediate. For users operating under tight liquidity constraints, where literally every single penny counts, this unexpected tax drastically and suddenly altered the entire cost landscape of using mobile money. What the research reveals here is a rapid, honestly devastating domino effect. Step 1, the e-levy tax is imposed. Step 2, instantly, the perceived net value of the app drops, and users feel they've lost behavioral control over their own money. This violates the very psychological pillars we just talked about. And step 3, rather than absorb the cost, highly price-sensitive users simply abandon the digital ecosystem altogether and revert right back to cash and informal networks. To really humanize this academic data, consider this direct quote from a male mobile money vendor in Ghana who had been operating for 4 years. He told researchers, "The e-levy has discouraged people from sending money, affecting our operations. Despite this, we have no choice but to continue using Momo. We hope for a reduction in the e-levy." This perfectly captures how friction instantly harms not just the individual users, but the local businesses heavily relying on that digital infrastructure. The big takeaway here is profound. Policy-induced costs, like transaction taxes on micropayments, don't just reduce a user's wealth. Friction actually destroys a user's autonomy. It signals that small-value digital transactions are penalized, which completely dismantles their psychological ownership of the product. It turns an empowering tool right back into an external constraint. Section 5. Designing true inclusion. Let's bring these two stories together. What the research unequivocally shows is that true financial inclusion requires deliberate product design that solves specific human constraints. It is for sure not just about launching a shiny new app or an algorithm. Building for the underbanked requires moving beyond purely algorithmic hard data, which, as we've seen, just mirrors existing disparities. We have to figure out how to incorporate the soft, local context and relationships that community banks use so effectively. We must actively foster deep psychological ownership so users feel the tool truly belongs to them. And crucially, we must ruthlessly remove external transaction frictions that kill product value for price-sensitive populations. I want to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. As we look at the future of digital finance, we really have to ask ourselves, are we building financial technology simply to reach people, or are we deliberately designing it to truly empower them? Because as the data proves, access is definitely not the same thing as inclusion. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to explain the research that shapes our world.